The NFL has been blessed with Brady, Manning, Mahomes, and Allen, and tonight we had Stetson versus Stick. Yes, I'm being sarcastic. We'll talk about a defensive battle at SoFi Stadium on tonight's special crossover edition of the Locked On Rams and Chargers Postcast right now. Hello, Ramley and Chargers Nation, and welcome to this special crossover edition of the Locked On Rams and Locked On Chargers Postcast here live on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel and after the fact wherever you get both the Locked On Rams and Locked On Chargers podcast feeds. He's Pete Fox, the postcast host for the Chargers as well as the Dodgers, the Clippers, USC, all that jazz. He's a credible guy. He's been doing radio in LA for decades, a legend. Me, on the other hand, I'm Gavin Carlson. If you don't know who I am, I'm a former credentialed journalist in the LA area. I'm the postcast host for the Rams, the Angels, UCLA, the Lakers. We're, of course, both a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And, last week we introduced something new to you football fans, the idea of a postcast. We're keeping it new again, a crossover postcast today where we'll be talking about both teams on one show. Before we jump into this one, where we will talk about a 13-9 Rams win that included some interesting QB play and, some other usual preseason stuff. Before we jump into that, a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's postcast. It is FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Pete, we're going to go straight to the QBs because that's what it feels like, preseason games are often about, and kind of a special thing or a unique case for both of these teams where no flashy first-round QB to look at, but kind of two meaningful QB situations. For the Rams, Jimmy Garoppolo suspended the first couple of games, so Stetson Bennett will be the backup. And the Chargers kind of figuring out their backup situation while, Justin Herbert still has a kind of questionable injury. What did you think of Easton Stick, and Perez as well? And what do you think of their performance today? Obviously, the offense not looking great.
Yeah, I think that if Justin Herbert is really hurt, the Chargers are absolutely screwed. They have no chance in hell of winning anything because Easton Stick is garbage, and so is Luis Perez. I don't care if Luis Perez has been there for 5 days and everyone's like, oh, wait, he's going to be okay. He's fine. He's new. He's still learning the offense. He's a step slow on everything. He's better than Easton Stick, which is surprising because Stick's been around there for 5 years or something. I've never understood the whole Easton Stick thing, other than he's a good guy, does his homework probably. He's ready when they need him. But when he gets on the field, this is what I'm looking for in a backup quarterback. I don't know about you, but I want the backup quarterback to give me at least the hope that if the starter goes out, we're going to be okay. This guy could find lightning in a bottle and go out there and win, right? If they run the ball well and they do the basics and don't turn it over, etc. But the way Easton Stick is played in these first 2 games, gives the Chargers fans, to me, no hope at all as a backup, right? Of course, everyone is like, whatever, it's preseason, including me. It's preseason, it's practice with fans. The fact, though, that Easton Stick looks, the reason people are saying that, well, Luis Perez isn't that bad is because Easton Stick has looked terrible. He's looked awful. 8 of 13 today for 85 yards, which is way better than he looked the last time out a week ago. But just off target, he's much better at running the ball than throwing the ball. To me, he seems confused, off target, and I don't want to say a lack of energy because he's got that. I see the lack of energy from Luis Perez, and I will chalk that up to him being new to the team, not necessarily knowing the offense, like the back of his hand. He's still learning. I get all of that. I don't understand why we didn't see Duggan at all today. Would have liked to have seen a little bit of Duggan. Maybe he'll play the whole game next week. But the question to me really is, who is the backup? They have to be wondering that at this point. Don't you think? They have to be sitting there in the room now, tomorrow, whatever, questioning whether or not Easton Stick is still the backup, or it's Duggan, or maybe it's Perez. I don't know. But the fact is, right now, they cannot have a ton of confidence in either one of these two guys. And Max Duggan played just okay at best last week. So probably a lot of questions there. So yeah, you were not feeling good about Stetson Bennett. I looked at Stetson Bennett's performance today compared to both Stick and Perez, and I'm like, I wish we had a guy like that. Obviously Jimmy Garoppolo is the backup for the Rams. Bennett might make the team. But the fact is that, he throws a good ball. He's agile in the pocket. He's not the biggest dude, but he seems to know the game pretty well. The whole personal issue thing that kept him out all of last season, it's kind of weird, just from a personal standpoint, but I guess he's beyond that and fine and back to the game. But 17 of 31 isn't great, but 213 is okay. The one nice touchdown pass was good to see if you're a Rams fan. And ultimately in preseason, that's all you're looking for, really, honestly, is like one good play. Like guys over here in the chat are saying that the Rams got to keep that Lop guy around because he had 2 catches for 50 yards, including a touchdown. I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe. It's so funny in football, especially preseason, that 1 or 2 plays can change a guy's entire life. Like now you're on the team. Like this Dean Leonard guy on defense for the Chargers, struggling to make the team, but had a really good game today. And, there's a couple of bobbles here and there, but ultimately like he performed well enough to be a starter. Like this is a guy that you would say flashed today and has an opportunity to make the team. Last week, this Tarheeb Still guy knocked a couple of passes away when I was, I guess, in the bathroom. I was away from the computer. And, I said, I didn't see Tarheeb Still. And everyone was like, you're an idiot. Tarheeb Still was balling. I'm like, balling? What did he do? He knocked away a couple of passes. But in preseason, that's all it takes. Yeah. And I will admit that I was wrong. Tarheeb Still played a really good game again today. He's a guy that the Chargers really like, just because of a few good plays here and there. So it doesn't take a lot of preseason to get the coaches to notice you and potentially make the team. So from a quarterback standpoint, today, the Chargers did not see anything worth opening their eyes about or worth considering or worth bragging about when it came to quarterbacks, because both of those guys were not good. Perez's numbers a little better at 13 for 20 for 78 yards, but I didn't think he had command of the offense, and maybe that's because he doesn't know the offense. So I'll give him a break there. So maybe a little bit better. You give him a C minus, and you give Easton Stick a D, maybe. I don't know. Maybe you give Perez a B minus and Stick a C today.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, from the outside looking in, it was always a question to me about the Chargers, why they didn't seem to care about the backup quarterback situation a little bit more than they did. Like you keep saying, there seems to be this kind of unreasonable confidence in Easton Stick. I mean, what did he show us in the games he played last year? Not much.
A bunch of losses.
Yeah, a bunch of losses. And I mean, that's before there's the, Herbert injury you have to worry about. But obviously Herbert got hurt last year. I just feel like, the Rams, they go out and get Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, he does end up getting suspended for the first 2 games of the year. But at least, like you're saying, if Matthew Stafford gets hurt, are the Rams going to put up 40 points with Jimmy G? No. But is he going to look scared to throw a slant across the middle like a competent NFL quarterback? No. And what I want to see, whether it's the Rams situation or the Chargers, is a backup quarterback that can, at the very least, make the first read, make the throw accurately, and every once in a while, if you need to go off schedule, get the job done. I mean, the reason Stetson Bennett looked good today is because, like in the first game, a lot of play actions, get out of the pocket, roll out, just easy throws in the flat. We love Jordan Whittington already. He's kind of been the standout receiver and really player for the Rams all preseason. I mean, Stetson Bennett was looking for him all the time. 8 targets, 5 catches, 52 yards. And why? It's a lot of throws in the flat, throws across the middle with not much traffic. What Stetson Bennett really struggled with last week was just kind of competent throws across the middle where, okay, maybe it's not the first read right away, but still, like, you got to be able to see a defender right in front of you. And Easton Stick, it just feels like he doesn't even give you that basic thing of, all right, the first read, if it's there, hit it on the money every time on time. Feels like he doesn't even give you that. Before we went live, I was talking with you. I do feel like Luis Perez is better in the sense that he's a statue, kind of like Jimmy Garoppolo, but I think he just throws a better ball. And so if you give him more time to get used to the offense, I feel like at least I might feel a little bit more confident. I mean, you saw it a couple times, a couple throws to Quentin Johnston where he, play action, you stand in the pocket, you throw a ball maybe a little bit higher than you'd like, but there's something behind the throw, and he just looked a little more confident at times. Now, when it gets off schedule for him, I think he's the worst of the 3. And so that's probably where he needs to grow the most, is if there's pressure, if there's sort of stuff breaking down. But certainly Chargers, it really amazes me that they didn't invest in the backup QB a little bit more.
Yeah, he's definitely a tad bit more accurate. Doc has an interesting comment here. 2 turnovers after 4 turnovers last week, talking about Bennett that against 2 touchdowns. So yes, obviously more turnovers than touchdowns. I guess you should grade him lower for the turnovers. Yeah, the fact that he only had 1 today was good. So it wasn't 2 turnovers, but 1 today, unless he had a fumble that I missed. But the fact is that I'm just looking at what he did well. Let's just forget about the turnovers, because obviously those are there. As far as throwing the ball, I thought Stetson Bennett did a pretty good job. You could look over at Easton Stick and go, he didn't throw the ball well, and he had a turnover. There was not much good there at all. And Luis Perez, I guess from a positive standpoint, no turnovers. So that's 1 check mark in his favor. After the break, dude, I want to get into the running back game because I thought the Chargers had some good stuff going on there for sure. That picture is starting to become a little bit clearer as to who the backup or the third stringer is going to be for them.
Yeah, no, I thought both running games were great. So certainly we'll get into that. I might add 1 or 2 more things about Stetson Bennett as well, because it's a reasonable debate about whether or not he actually had a good game and if there's confidence there, because like we're saying with the Chargers, this is their backup, whoever it is between Stick and Perez. Stetson Bennett is the backup the first 2 weeks. So, it's an important debate there as well. We'll take our first break. When we get back, we'll talk about the running game. We'll talk about any other standouts, and we'll also get into some of the new NFL rules we saw on display. Once again, the kickoff rule, also the virtual chain gang. I thought that was pretty fun. We'll get to all that and more after our breaks here on the Locked On Rams and Chargers Postcast. Now, today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day or therapy day. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. There's been this kind of movement kind of in society overall, and even in sports and talking about athletes, where it's really important to care about your mental health, to take care of yourself, and to get help if you need it. And certainly the great thing about BetterHelp is maybe the hardest part about therapy is the inconvenience in some people's eyes. BetterHelp makes things convenient. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. BetterHelp. Back here live on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel, a special crossover edition of the Locked On Rams and Chargers postcasts. The Rams get the better of the Chargers in this preseason SoFi Stadium battle for LA, 13-9 the final. We already talked about the QBs a little bit. One more thing I'll quickly add about Stetson Bennett. Certainly was better than last week. Still just a couple times where the spiral doesn't look tight. The arm strength doesn't look the best. Ironically, like Pete's saying, you have a flashy long touchdown and everyone goes, man, Stetson Bennett's got a great arm. He can throw a 50-yard touchdown. But still a couple times I felt like, he has that quick release. He doesn't really put his whole body behind the throw, just kind of flicks his wrist. And if it looks good, it looks good. But a couple times, balls floating in the air, almost intercepted stuff. So still definitely questioning Stetson Bennett a little bit. Let's get into the running game though, Pete, because like you said before the break, I'd say both running games looked good. I was certainly impressed with Kimani Vidal, 11 carries, 49 yards, a 13-yard long rush. It's funny, real quick with him, I had an internship at Fox Sports this spring, and I was assigned to look at kind of random prospects before the draft and cut some highlight reels for them. One guy I got was Kimani Vidal. And during that kind of task, I was like, this guy's impressive. He's small, but he kind of knows how to be a small running back. Lower the shoulder. Obviously, you got to be extremely quick when you're kind of the size that he is. I was impressed by him. What about you, Pete?
Yeah, indeed. The term that who was the guy on the color? I don't know. Were you watching the Rams broadcast? What's the old Charger quarterback?
Oh, Fouts.
Fouts. Yeah. Fouts kept saying the term, good vision. And I agreed with that because a couple of times he hesitated at the line of scrimmage, waited for the hole to open up and then burst through it. So that was nice to see. I thought it was a really nice performance. He put his head down quite a few times, put his shoulder down, banged out some hard yards, had just a good day. I think the third position for them, there's a lot of question marks hanging around who the third guy will be, because obviously Gus Edwards probably the number one, J.K. Dobbins more than likely the number two. The smash and dash theory, Edwards more of the bell cow, bigger dude, Dobbins the faster guy. Both of those guys are going to play, but Dobbins coming off the torn Achilles, you never know how that reacts. So for that third spot, it's Vidal, Isaiah Spiller, Elijah Dotson, Jarek Patterson. Jarek Patterson early in the game touched the ball a few times, again was okay. And I love when people get really mad when you say somebody was okay. Like, you're either, I guess you have to be either good or terrible. Like, those are the options. You can't be okay. I thought Patterson was okay. 4 touches, 10 yards, hard yards, banging them out. So didn't have any, big bursts for a long run, but was just okay. Ultimately, when you get right down to it, Vidal was the standout today in the backfield for the Chargers. Easton Stick was second to Vidal in rushing yards with 22. The rest of the guys, Dotson, fair. Spiller, I thought was okay. And Spiller, all in all, had a pretty decent game when you look at combined yards, because he also caught 2 balls for 16 yards. So again, just okay, but I don't believe that, he's a front runner to make the team. I was talking to Fernando Ramirez, who works for Sporting Tribune during the week, covers the Chargers on the beat. He's at Real F Ramirez on Twitter, or X. If you want a good Charger follow Fernando. But he was telling me kind of just said, yeah, I don't know that Spiller's going to make the team. He's a long shot to make the team for sure. But Vidal is a guy they really, really like. So he's probably the front runner, I would say, after today's performance, without a doubt.
Yeah, no, he looked good. I really think he looked good. And, on the Rams side of things, kind of a surprise, at least from my point of view, strong performance from Zach Evans, 16 carries, 62 yards. I think both offensive lines were able to kind of control the line of scrimmage throughout the game, get a good push. And one thing you want to see is in moments where it's a likely run situation, how do they do? And kind of mixed success there for both teams. Obviously, the Chargers, a failed 1st and goal inside the 5. I mean, Easton Stick forgetting how to snap a football certainly doesn't help. Yeah. The Rams kind of struggling in short yardage situations previously, but then obviously in that 4th quarter, sort of to ice out the game with the running game, able to do it both with a huge Boston Scott run, but also Zach Evans before that. Evans and Scott both left this game early, came back in and looked pretty good. I mean, kind of the same thing you were talking about with the Chargers. The Rams, the depth chart at the running back spot, a little more set. Kyron Williams is the guy. You go out and spend a pretty high, draft pick on Blake Corum to be the backup, kind of in the eyes of some, steal Blake Corum from Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers maybe. And then Ronnie Rivers, as of now, is the 3rd slot in for the running backs situation for the Rams, and I think he's pretty much set. He hasn't even been playing in this preseason. They seem pretty satisfied with him at the 3. So it becomes Boston Scott versus Zach Evans for that 4th spot. One thing we'll get into is the kickoff rule a little bit. I feel like a lot of the reason that Boston Scott will make this roster is because he gives you something in the return game, and for the first time in ages, the return game might actually matter. We haven't really seen the kickoff rule be used that much so far, because it feels like right now they're just kind of kicking the ball through the end zone, not risking any injuries on special teams. But I think once the regular season starts, that will be a play that actually matters. And so I think that's why, even with the strong performance from Zach Evans today, I think there's still questions if he makes the Rams roster, because there's probably 4 guys ahead of him, Boston Scott being a kick returning guy. Real quick, did any receivers stand out to you? I mean, you see Ladd McConkey play for 2 seconds. I mean, he had 1 catch. It was kind of interesting. The Rams, obviously, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, neither of them out there. The Chargers, you've got DJ Chark out there. You've got Ladd McConkey out there. You've got Quentin Johnson out there, guys that will certainly get meaningful snaps for the Chargers. Did anyone stand out to you? I mean, you didn't see much from any of them, to be honest, but any thoughts on the receiving side of things?
McConkey just, had to get out there and kind of make contact with some people, put his hands on the ball. He was out there about 5 minutes, 1 catch, 5 yards. It was for a 1st down. So that was nice to see. I think he's going to be very good for them as a slot receiver. The guy that I like from last week and this week is Semi Fehoko. Now, again, when I was talking to Fernando during the week, he was kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure he's going to make it. He might be a special teams guy. I'm like,
Right.
really? I feel like he could be one of their better receivers, in any number of places. Out in the slot on the outside, he played on defense today, or maybe that was special teams. I saw he has a stat on defense. So 2 tackles. So I'm assuming, do they put special teams tackles on defense? I don't think they do, but maybe they do. I know he plays on special teams as well. So maybe he got a couple tackles there on kickoff. So he's a versatile dude. I love his energy. I really like the way he played today. 2 catches for 52 yards, sure-handed. So I hope that guy makes the teams. I think he could be very good for the Chargers. The other guy that looked, again, pretty good was Quentin Johnson. One of his really nice catches was not an official catch because he was pushed out of bounds, but he's had problems holding on to the ball. His hands have been shaky. So at least, he caught a couple of balls and it looked okay. 1 ball for 19 yards on the stat book, on the box score. But yeah, I think he's definitely, he's there as one of the Chargers' top receivers. But beyond that, yeah, nothing really stood out dramatically as far as receivers doing anything special, right? It was all a bunch of one catches. Stone Smart, one of their draft picks this year, 1 catch. Will Dissly, 1 catch for a first down. Jalen Gill, 2 for 9. That was way late in the game. As I said, Isaiah Spiller, a couple of catches. Jalen Johnson, another guy trying to make the squad. So Simi Fehoko, far and away. Jarrett Patterson, also very good out of the backfield. I thought he was versatile, didn't have a great day running the ball, but caught 5 balls for 28 yards. So that's nice to see as well. I based on what I've been told and what I see from the guys that are there day in and day out, that there's going to be a real battle between Patterson and Vidal to make this team. So I feel like only one of those guys is going to make the team. Vidal had 2 catches for 8 yards as well. So he can catch the ball out of the backfield as well. So that, to me, that spot for that third running back right now is neck and neck between Patterson and Vidal.
Yeah, the Chargers had a couple checkdowns that were pretty clever, pretty impressive. I did think it was pretty funny early in the game. Dan Fouts said that Easton Stick had his play of the preseason when he threw like a 3-yard checkdown just because there was a little bit of pressure on him. I thought that was pretty hilarious. I was like, man, I didn't watch the Chargers game, the entire game last week, but it must have, I know statistically it was bad, but man, it must have been bad if a 3-yard checkdown is one of the plays of the preseason for Easton Stick. That about summarized that. Real quick, I'll just talk about the Rams receiving thing. Doesn't need much time because Jordan Whittington, back-to-back games now where he's been so impressive. He had 6 catches for 74 yards last week, 5 for 52 today, 8 targets like we were saying. He seems like not only a lock to make the roster as a 6th-round pick, but might be wide receiver 4, might see meaningful full-time, physical receiver. He's going to help you in the run game as well, which we know Sean McVay loves, a receiver that can block. But how about Xavier Smith? Deserves a lot of credit as well. 5 catches, 45 yards. He had a 22-yard catch. There was that Stetson Bennett kind of back shoulder fade, I guess, but a preseason level back shoulder fade where, just kind of lob the ball up there and let the guy make a catch. Smith also had a pretty impressive return, so got to give him some credit for that. But yeah, I mean, for the Rams, it feels like it's a lot more set with the receiving core. You know who the top 3 guys are. Feels like Whittington's probably number 4. Whereas, yeah, I think I personally would have, as a Chargers, if I was a Chargers fan, I'd want to see more from Quentin Johnson, maybe a little bit, just knowing the draft capital. And I don't know how familiar you are with the meme culture, Pete, but there's the memes going into the draft for the Chargers, whereas either the Chargers draft a receiver and then every play Justin Herbert gets killed, or they draft Joe Alt and then every play, Joe Alt blocks for Herbert, but then Quentin Johnston drops the ball. Those are the memes coming into the draft. So certainly right now, I think the priority is to protect Justin Herbert. So I think they made the right selection, but hopefully for Chargers fans, you see a little bit more from that receiving core going forward. Obviously, a completely new core. You get rid of just about everybody going into this year. But yeah, we'll take our last break. When we come back, I want to hear your thoughts about the virtual chain gang. I thought that was kind of fun, using some of that tennis technology to just see where the ball actually is. I feel like fans have been clamoring for that for years. And I guess the kicking game kind of making some headlines as well, at least for the Rams. Josh Carty in a kick battle. He made a couple. He missed one as well. We'll talk about that after our last break here on the Locked On Rams and Chargers crossover postcast.
Well, tonight's episode of the Chargers and Rams Postcast is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for jobs or for a new job. They probably have a job, but they're, laying in the weeds potentially for that perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small business owners are wearing so many hats, they might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They've even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. Gotta love AI. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Back here live one more time. They switched us. I'm on the right now. Pete's on the left, but he's Pete Fox. I'm Gavin Carlson. We are the postcast hosts for the Chargers and Rams, a special crossover postcast as the Rams beat the Chargers 13-9 in week 2 of the preseason, the SoFi Bowl, the battle for LA, whatever you want to call it. We had Easton Stick, we had Stetson Bennett, so of course you knew it was going to be an amazing offensive battle. Obviously sarcastic there. But real quick, before we wrap this one up, a couple things. On the Rams' point of view, we know that the Chargers kicking situation is, pretty set. Dicker, the kicker, fun guy. I was at one of the commercials. They said that he speaks Mandarin. He spent 11 years overseas. Seems like a fun guy. He's got the nice flow. I think they called it lettuce on the broadcast. He was 3 for 3. He drilled a 55-yarder. Nothing to worry about there. For the Rams, it was supposed to be a kicker battle. The Rams spent a pick on Joshua Carty this offseason, and yesterday was perfect on pretty short kicks. Today, he showed some leg with a 40-yarder that he made, but then he also missed one pretty bad wide right. So still, jury's out a little bit. I still like Joshua Carty. He's kind of just one of those cool, calm, collected kickers where whether he's kicking it 50 or 20, he doesn't look like he's kicking the ball that hard. Maybe it hurt him a little bit on that long miss, but I still feel okay about things there. Real quick, Pete, I want to get your opinion on a couple things. First off, I kind of previewed the kickoff rule. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's useless? Do you think they're just going to kick the ball out of the end zone still? Or do you feel like maybe we'll actually see some kick returns in 2024 and 25?
I feel like I appreciate the approach because last year the return rate was 22%, the lowest in the history of the NFL or something like that. And, they're trying to get the return game back into the game. And I appreciate that because I always thought the return game was fun. It can be very exciting. It can be the most exciting play you see in the game if a guy takes one back from the goal line. That's awesome. So when you eliminate that from the game, it's just unfortunate and boring sometimes on kickoffs. So I like the fact that they're trying something, but I couldn't help but notice today that it seems like if the kicker wants to, he can kick it out of the end zone every time, right? And I don't know that they care about being set up at the 30-yard line as a quote penalty. So that's unfortunate. So to me, it's like a double-edged sword. If they let the guy return, it's fun and it's interesting and it can turn into something. But if they don't want that guy to touch the ball, then you just kick it out of the end zone. So I don't know if you need to move the kicker back or make the penalty heavier, like you get it at the 40 potentially or something. But the way it sets right now, it's not exactly right. I feel like there is a way around it, and kicking the ball out of the end zone because whoever the returner is too good and you don't want him touching the ball, that eliminates the possibility. So yeah, I don't love that aspect of it for sure.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. I kind of said it earlier, but I think it was last week for the Rams game. They had Sean McVay on the broadcast multiple times talking, and he was like totally blowing it off. He's like, we're kicking it through the end zone. The question is whether or not this is teams just kicking it through the end zone right now in the preseason, because a number of things. A, maybe they don't feel confident about their special teams. It's a bunch of backups. B, maybe they're trying to avoid injuries on kind of what is a useless play, at least right now. So the question, I think, is once the actual games start, do teams change up their approach? I feel like the rule, in my opinion, still favors the kicking team, like you're saying, you can still avoid the kick returner if you want, but also if you land it in that landing zone, you kind of have the opportunity to kick the ball higher, have it float for even longer, and kind of set things up even more for the kicking team. Obviously, you can't get the running start until the ball is caught, so it does change things a little bit. But even just seeing where the returner is to catch the ball, kind of having your plan as he's catching it, I think it's easier in that regard too. So we'll see. It's still early, obviously, and I think special teams coaches are excited about it and fans should be as well. One thing I will say is I remember when they announced the rule, everyone was all up in arms. What is happening to the game I love? It's so gimmicky. Come on, like you said, 22% last year. The play is useless. The same way a extra point from the 2-yard line was useless, and now extra points mean something. And sometimes the elite offenses want to go for 2 even more now, because what's a 30+ yard extra point compared to a 2-yard 2-point conversion? So I certainly commend the NFL as well for getting creative. I know they borrowed it from the XFL or USFL or whichever random league it was that started it. I think there's potential, and we'll see. Maybe, like you said, in a year, maybe they move the kickers back, or maybe they extend the penalty. Maybe not the 40, because I know the 40 is the out of bounds penalty spot. Maybe the 35, right? Who knows? Yeah. Maybe you find that happy medium. One other thing we saw today was the virtual chain gang. And this is another thing, maybe not another thing, but this is something fans have been clamoring for. They're like, why in the world do you watch the US Open and they're able to see a tennis ball that's going 100+ miles an hour, exactly an centimeter, millimeter accuracy where it landed, but we've got, random 70-year-old guys carrying this chain to see the biggest call of the game, if it's a first down or not. We see, I didn't see it last week. Did you see it last week in the Chargers game?
No.
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe it was not a thing last week, it was this week, I don't know, but we saw it. They ruled it a first down. It was quick and easy. Sometimes when there's new things like this with tech and review and stuff, people complain about how long it takes. I thought it was really efficient. You wait, you show the line, you show the ball, there's no debate. All the ref has to do is point first down and you keep it moving. It honestly was quicker than waiting for those guys to carry that darn chain out anyway. So, maybe, I don't know. Do you feel like it's less exciting? I don't think anyone can argue that it's less logical. I mean, it's more accurate and it's more efficient, but is it maybe less exciting than seeing those guys bring those big orange chains out?
Well, Gavin, we've done 2 other crossovers, Angels, Dodgers, and for whatever reason, the strike zone didn't come up during those crossovers. So maybe I didn't share my opinion on tech in professional sports. I cannot stand that we still have human beings calling balls and strikes on balls that are coming 90+ miles an hour, and they are missing strike calls by a very small distance, like you said, an inch or sometimes less.
Yeah.
When we have the technology, we should be using it. Most other sports are. Tennis, now football. Why aren't they doing it in baseball? I don't know. I'm assuming it will happen sooner before later. We will have a robot umpire, not an actual robot, but the umpire will be getting the information in his ear as to whether it's a strike or whether it is a ball. And the main reason for that is I think that framing is ridiculous and it's cheating. It is either a strike or it is not a strike. It shouldn't be like a magic trick. Like, I can make it look like a strike even though it's not. So to answer your question, I love it because it is exact and it is precise, and that's what we need when we are. And again, for baseball, I say any other level, minor leagues, college, high school, whatever. I don't care. Have real umpires. It doesn't matter as much. When you're in high leverage situations like this, that inch can make or break, the victory. I don't know if you saw this tennis call in the Cincinnati Open. It's a tennis tournament that's happening right now. Not a big deal, but the guy from Canada, Ojay Aliassim, lost a match because of a missed call because the umpire couldn't see it. The ball hit the racket, hit the ground, and then bounced over. And I don't know if you know the rules of tennis, but that's not allowed. And that was match point. And he lost the match because of that. Wow. They don't have a rule where you can review a play like that in tennis. They just have in and out. So anytime the technology is available to make sure we get the call right, I think we should be using it across the board in any sports. And my final thought for you is when this game is over, I was asked today, our producer Sam said, when the game is over, evaluate the coach real quick and say, do you know anything more about your coach today than you did last week? And with Jim Harbaugh being the new Chargers head coach, I looked at this game and I said, do I know anything more about Jim Harbaugh coaching the Chargers today than I did last week? And the answer to that is not really. No, there's not a lot more information out there on what Jim Harbaugh is going to do as the head coach. Screen passes, play action, run the ball. That's what we expected from him. That's what we got today. I assume once we get into the regular season and Justin Herbert is the quarterback, they will stretch the field a little bit more, I hope. But they did a pretty nice job today of the screen pass and the play action, which is obviously something we expect from him. But I know Sean McVay wasn't even coaching today.
Yeah.
What was that all about? Was that was just a nod to the assistant, like, here, have fun kind of a thing?
Yeah, they said it was kind of a nod to giving credit to kind of the whole staff, the special team staff, new defensive coordinator with Raheem Morris gone. Obviously, the replacement was not the one coaching this one. It was part of the special team staff, or assistant coach. But yeah, he was up there in the box. I think he was still involved in play calling and whatnot, of course. And I think, yeah, with Sean McVay, there's not much of a question about what type of, the Rams are a lot more set in everything. Matthew Stafford will be throwing a bunch of balls to Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. They'll be handing it off to Kyron Williams. Maybe O-line is the only thing you're worried about or concerned about with the offense. Chargers, yeah, completely different story. I mean, I think, to answer your question about what we learned, I think you learned more about what the Chargers were going to do in the offseason than in the last 2 weeks. You trade away both of your you let both of your receivers go. You draft an O-lineman in the first round, and then Jim Harbaugh is known for wanting to pound the rock, at least at Michigan, right? So I think you learn more about what the Chargers were going to do in the offseason than anything you will learn in the entire preseason. They're going to run the ball a lot more than you'd expect, try to protect and help Justin Herbert out a little bit more. And I think there's a huge, I don't know, real quick, tell me, Chargers, you confident, skeptical, think it's going to take a couple years for the Harbaugh era to kick into gear? Or are you expecting, a wild card push year one?
Yeah, I really do. I believe in Jim Harbaugh. I think right now he's soft shoeing his way through the preseason, just like Sean McVay. They don't care. Jim Harbaugh's probably right now already back to his trailer at the beach. They're not breaking down film right now. Like, whatever, on to next week. The number one goal is that nobody gets hurt. We get some film on some of these guys that are trying to make the team. They don't care about this stuff. It is completely just going through the motions. This is all about a handful of youngsters trying to make the team. That's it. Yeah. So I feel like it's all going to change when the preseason starts, and it's not unique to these two guys. It's pretty standard across the league nowadays. So I think Jim Harbaugh brings a real intensity to this team. I think he knows how to coach. I think he has a proven track record, and I think it is going to translate to wins for the Chargers. Now, does that mean a championship? I don't think so, not this year, but I think they're going to be a better team, and I think they're going to win football games. And yes, to answer your question, I think a wild card playoff, because just from the Kansas City trying to three-peat standpoint, that's hard to do. That is very, very challenging, right? Obviously, they're a good team, but the fact is that three-peating is nearly impossible. It's very, very difficult. So that works in the Chargers' favor as well. Denver's kind of a question mark. The Raiders are a question mark. So the Chargers have a real opportunity here to chase down Kansas City this year. I think they're going to be a much better team because Jim Harbaugh knows how to coach. He has put together the team that he wants. He has the staff that he wants. So as long as there aren't major injuries, it's going to be successful.
Yeah, it's no secret that the Chargers just got to win some close games for once. It's been the issue forever, right? Is that they lose every close game. And if there's a guy that, I at least in my point of view, I'm not the biggest fan of going all in on, it's about emotion and motivation and momentum. I'm still, I don't know, maybe I'm a little new era in that I like analytics and I like looking at stats a little bit more than maybe some people. But if there is a situation where a coach and his culture and his motivation skills and his mentality will actually affect the team's wins and losses, I think it's the Chargers. You lose a bunch of games in the past couple of years because you have coaches that just make boneheaded decisions, and you always lose the close game. So I think you can say it's a culture thing, that Jim Harbaugh is the perfect guy, not taking anything away from the X's and O's with him, of course, but just kind of culture-wise, I think he actually is the perfect fit. So I agree.
Real quick, Gavin, final thought about the Rams. I almost forgot about this. You talked a lot about the offensive line. What about the defensive line? One major change on the Rams defensive line. Aaron Donald, not there, although Craig is speculating that he'll be back by week 10 if the Rams are in it. I don't know about that. I think he is actually done, but who knows? It's going to be different for sure.
I think he's done. It is kind of funny because the same way you talk about Brady and him, like, always being in perfect shape to where he could always come back if he wants to. If there's a human being on planet Earth that is in phenomenal shape, that looks like he could take a bullet and survive, it's Aaron Donald. So certainly I don't think he could not come back in week 10 or something if he wanted. But at the same time, the reason he retired is not because of a lack of ability and health body wise. It's just football's grueling and he felt like taking, being done. He's already left everything on the game that he can. He's one of the greatest ever. So to answer the question about the D line, I'm actually not as worried as other people would think, in the sense that, sure, did Aaron Donald sort of hide a lot of flaws with his defense? Yes. I think the biggest issue is the secondary. But even when Aaron Donald was there, it was the secondary. It was just that Aaron Donald would kind of hide those mistakes, those issues, by just always being a menace to the opposing quarterback. You have that a little bit less, but this team, it's no secret they've invested heavily in D-line since the exit. You draft the first 2 picks of your draft are both D linemen. You kind of trade maybe a little bit too much in the second round to go up and get a D tackle. And there was promise last year, even with Aaron Donald there, a couple young defensive linemen playing well. So I'm not as worried about the actual D-line drop-off. It's more so just, is this the secondary is not good. It's not a secret. And maybe Aaron Donald was hiding that even more than I or other people realize. So we'll see. But I think at the end of the day, for the Rams, it just comes down to Matthew Stafford health, Cooper Kupp health, Puka Nacua health, Kyron Williams health, offensive lineman health, and then just being good enough defensively. They're certainly not going to be elite. But I think that, that's about it. Pretty long postcast. I always go long. I don't know about Pete with the Dodgers, but with the Angels, even though it's the Angels, I still find a way to go long every single time. So not surprised we went well over time. But thanks so much to everybody in here. Love seeing the big crowd for the football season coming up. It's just the preseason, and we already got a nice community growing. So whether you are a Chargers fan and you're going to tune into the Locked On Chargers postcast every week with Pete, or you are a Rams fan and you're going to tune into the Locked On Rams postcast with me, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you guys in those future postcasts. Pete, any closing words before we wrap this up?
Chargers look for their first preseason practice win next week against the Cowboys. Who do the Rams have?
Oh, geez, you have me on the spot. I actually don't even remember. The Rams have the Texans. Oh, that'll be interesting. I mean, the Texans, one of the not even quiet at this point, the kind of dark horse Super Bowl contenders with everything. We're certainly not going to see a lot of those guys play for the Texans. And the last preseason game is usually the most brutal of all of them, because at this point you've already seen stuff and you're just trying to make sure nobody gets hurt. So one thing we didn't see many injuries in this game and the games last week, at least for the Rams. So that's a good thing. But all right, we'll wrap this one up
against Texas next week.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks a lot, Pete. Take care, and good luck with the Dodgers postcast going forward. The Angels are on right now. I don't even know the score. It's a rare time where I don't even get to watch the whole game for them. But yeah, all right. Take care. Thanks a lot. Shout out to everybody in here. We'll catch you next time. Go Rams and Chargers. Take care, everybody.
See you, man.